Have you ever looked at something totally custom made, like a built from scratch house or a one of a kind piece of furniture, and just wondered, how in the world did they come up with a price for that? I mean, how do they know what to charge to cover everything and still make a profit? Well, that's the exact puzzle we're going to solve today. Let's break down the blueprint. So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at why pricing unique items is such a special challenge. Then we'll introduce the awesome accounting tool that solves it, and we'll walk through a real example step by step. And finally, we'll see how all this helps businesses predict the future.
All right, first things first. To really get why this is such a big deal, we have to understand that not all businesses play by the same rules. Think about it like this. On one side, you've got job order industries. You know, a construction crew building a specific house or a designer creating a unique logo. Every single project is different. But on the other side, you've got mass production, like a factory churning out thousands of identical cans of soda. Their costing methods are a whole different ballgame. And that leads us to the million-dollar question for anyone doing custom work, right? If every single job has different materials, different hours, different everything, you can't just slap on a standard price tag. You need a system.
Well, that system has a name, and it's an incredibly powerful accounting method called job costing.
So what is it really? At its heart, job costing is basically like being a detective for a single project. It's all about tracking every single penny that goes into one specific job, so you end up with a crystal clear picture of what it actually cost to get it done. And why bother with all this? Well, it does three huge things. One, it tells you if you actually made money on that last job. Two, it gives you a data-driven blueprint for quoting the next job. And three, it helps you keep costs in check by showing you where your estimates and your actual spending didn't line up. It's absolutely vital. Okay, so that's the what and the why, but how does this actually play out in the real world? It's not magic, it's actually a really clear and logical four-step process. The workflow is pretty straightforward. First, every job gets its own unique tracking number, kind of like a license plate. Then, a production order gives the official green light to start the work. After that, the all-important job cost sheet is created to log every single expense. And finally, when the job's done, you tally everything up to see if you made a profit or a loss. Okay, let's get to the fun part and see how this actually looks with real numbers. We're going to build a job cost sheet from the ground up. This is where the magic happens. We start with the obvious stuff, the direct costs. In our example, that's $90,000 for materials and $75,000 for the wages of the people physically doing the work. You can literally point to these costs in the final product. Add them together, and you get what's called the prime cost, which here is $165,000. But of course, there's more to it than that. What about the factory rent, the electricity to run the machines? Those are indirect costs. We have to allocate a fair share of those expenses, which we call factory overheads, to this specific job. Let's say it's $45,000. Now our total, the works cost, is up to $210,000. And we're not done yet. What about the folks in the office? You know, HR, accounting, the managers. Their work supports production, so we have to account for their costs too. We'll add $42,000 for administration overheads. That brings our total cost of production to $252,000. Almost there. Now we add the cost to actually sell and deliver the thing, another $52,500. That gives us our total cost of sales. Now, a business has got to make money, right? So they add their target profit margin, in this case, $60,900. And there you have it. The final sales price for the customer is $365,400. Every single cost is baked right in. Okay, this is where job costing goes from being useful to being a total game changer. It's not just about looking back at what happened, it's about using that data to build a crystal ball for the future.
So just imagine a new client comes to you next year with a really similar request. Do you have to guess the price all over again? No way. You can use the info from the job you just finished to create a super reliable estimate.
If we look back at our numbers, we can spot some key relationships. Our factory overheads were $45,000 and direct wages were $75,000. A little quick math shows that our overheads were exactly 60% of our labor costs. That's a golden ratio we can use again. And we can do the exact same thing for the admin costs. They came out to be 20% of the works cost. See? We're building a formula here, a predictable model for our business. And what about our profit? Well, our profit ended up being 1/5 or 20% of our total cost to sell the item. That becomes our target profit margin we want to hit on every similar job going forward.
So now we can build a forecast for this new job. We plug in the new direct costs, then we just apply our percentages, 60% for factory overheads, 20% for admin costs, and then add our 20% profit margin on top of it all. This data-driven approach gives us a new sales price of $428,400 that we can be incredibly confident in.
Okay, before we wrap this up, let's just touch on how this exact same idea works when you're not making just one unique thing, but a whole group of identical ones. This is where something called batch costing comes into play. So instead of tracking the cost of one custom table, imagine you're tracking the total cost of making a batch of, say, 1,000 identical t-shirts. You're still gathering all the same costs, materials, labor, overhead, but you're doing it for the entire group as if it were one single job. And this quote from our source material really says it all. Batch costing isn't some brand new concept. It's just job costing wearing a slightly different hat. It's the same blueprint, just applied at a different scale.
So the next time you see any kind of custom work out in the world, a tailored suit, a hand-painted sign, even a new website, you'll know the secret. You'll know about the financial blueprint working behind the scenes. It's the hidden system that brings predictable financial order to even the most creative and unique work there is.